welcome to the channel, and in this video I'll be going over my Terminator collection in honor of the first film that's celebrating its 40th anniversary, so let's get into the video. First up is the new 4K Steelbook that came out recently. I missed out on the pre-order for this and I was a little bummed since I really dig the artwork, and as of this recording it's still sold out online, and scalpers are selling it for double the price. I found this at Barnes & Noble when I went there to check out what they had for their Criterion Collection sale, so if you missed out on the Steelbook then check your local Barnes & Noble. It unfortunately only comes with a 4K disc and no Blu Ray. Also, no new special features were done for it. It just ports over the special features that were done for the DVD. For an iconic movie like this, it deserves better. And growing up, I pretty much just watched T2, but now I do go back and watch this a bit more often, and I feel like it does rival T2. This was technically James Cameron's first time directing since he was fired during the making of Piranha 2, and obviously he's gone on to have a massively successful career. This is a nice 4K transfer, and it still has the look and texture of an 80s film. It doesn't wipe away the grain texture like the other Cameron films we got on 4K. I also had the first Terminator on UMD. MGM was pretty good with putting out their classic titles on UMD. This is a good movie to watch on a portable device since the runtime is about an hour and 45 minutes. Plus the movie has great pacing. The only thing that doesn't hold up are some of the special effects, and that's less of an issue for me. Also, I gotta mention Brad Fiddel's iconic score. He's kind of like the unsung hero for this franchise. The music is just as memorable as Arnold's performance. He only worked on the first two films, and his presence was really missed in those later sequels. Next up is T2, and I bought this exclusive 4K Steelbook at Best Buy. I know there's a lot of problems with the 4K itself, but the artwork on this was far too good to pass up. I think this was one of the earlier Steelbooks that Lionsgate put out, where it came with a slipcover, and once you take that off it reveals a greater image. Tracy Ching and Orlando Arocena, probably mispronounced his name, did the artwork, and they've done a few Steelbooks for Lionsgate. Pretty sure Tracy did the artwork for the slipcover and on the interior of the Steelbook, while Orlando's artwork is on the front and back of the Steelbook itself. Also, I remember this being like $22, which I wish we could go back to that price, because now everything is at the very least $30. This 4K transfer gets a lot of flack for removing all the film grain, and Cameron has said that he wants his older movies to look a bit more modern, which then opened the debate up to revisionism. Changing a film so many years after it's been made that it no longer looks like the film that you saw back in the day. Cameron recently stated that if you're complaining about his 4K transfers, then you need to move out of your mother's basement. My feelings towards that are just simple.
Fuck you.
I also have T2 on UMD, which closely resembles the film I watched growing up. It may have been meddled with a little bit by Cameron. I think I remember hearing that the Laserdisc is the only home version that matches up closely to what the film looked like when it was released in theaters. I could be wrong about that. I also gotta mention Robert Patrick's performance as the T-1000. He's clearly a formidable foe for Arnold, despite Arnold being a massive human being. Linda Hamilton's character transformation from the first one, turning her into one of, if not the most badass heroines on film. Brad Fiddel's score is great once again, and I like that he altered it a little bit, with it having a more industrial sound. Why no director has brought him back seems like such a mistake. Not even Danny Elfman was able to top his score. Nearly 10 years later after T2, we got Rise of the Machines, and I remember being so hyped for this movie and loving it as a kid, even with that dour ending. Now looking back on this film so many years later, and it kind of just plays like a parody of T2. I don't mind that it kind of undoes the ending of the previous film by saying you can't change your fate, but only delay the inevitable, and we are the creators of our own undoing. I got this Blu-ray pretty recently on a trip up to Tampa and got it super cheap at Viper Video. It was the only movie in the series I didn't own on Blu-ray, and it had been a long time since I rewatched it. All the performances are pretty solid. I would say Kristanna Loken as the TX just feels a little too samey to the T-1000, but that's a problem all the sequels have, trying to live up to the high bar that T2 set. I also have Terminator 3 on UMD. Warner Brothers put this out, and the rights to these films are all over the place. MGM owns Terminator 1, Lionsgate owns T2, Warner Brothers owns 3 and Salvation, then Paramount owns both Genisys and Dark Fate. James Cameron sold the rights to his then wife, Gail Ann Hurd, for only $1. I'm pretty sure Cameron now owns the rights, and Dark Fate was the first film he worked on since T2, albeit in a producer role. He says he has more ideas for a new installment, but since he's busy making more Avatar films, I think it's safe to say he'll probably just be a producer again. After Rise of the Machines, we got Terminator Salvation. and this is my favorite sequel outside of the two Cameron films. It's not on the level of the first two, but it's a good entry and doesn't follow the formula this franchise had set. Best Buy released this awesome edition back when it was released on Blu Ray. I bought this years later off of eBay for a pretty good price. It's not in great condition, but that doesn't really bother me. I like these gimmicky releases, and having the Terminator skull as a case was a great idea. We got a lot of these types of editions around the same time, like for Iron Man, Dark Knight, Watchmen, and The Incredible Hulk, all had releases like this. I'd like studios to return to making something similar to this instead of just putting out a steelbook for collectors. The director's cut was exclusive to Blu Ray, and it doesn't add a whole lot except a little more violence. This was the first Terminator movie to be rated PG-13. The director Mick G says there is an alternative cut of the film, and it has a different ending. Maybe they'll include it on a future 4K release, but I doubt it. Well, it depends on how much money Warner Brothers would need to spend on it, whether that version of the film was finished or not. Salvation also got a UMD release, but it was released in the UK. But luckily it's region free, so I could play it on my PSP here in the States. I may be pretty fond of this movie, but one person that isn't is Christian Bale. His rant on set is pretty infamous and has overshadowed this film a little bit. I still think he's pretty good as John Connor, but he did not enjoy making this movie, and even went on to say that he would never work with director Mick G again. The late great Anton Yelchin did a great job portraying a younger version of Kyle Reese, and Danny Elfman did the score for this movie, and while it's not memorable, he doesn't shy away from using Brad Fiddel's score at the most opportune times. I also have the movie tie-in game for Salvation, and I remember it being pretty okay, which is all you could ask for back then when it came to movie tie-in games, because for the most part, they were all pretty bad. So after Salvation kind of failed to reinvigorate the series, we got what I believe is the worst movie in this franchise, Terminator Genisys. I bought the Blu Ray years after it came out when I saw it on a clearance rack in FYE. I bought it for $5 simply because it came with a mini Terminator skull. I thought I still had the Blu Ray, but I must have donated it to Goodwill some time ago. I considered buying it again for this video, but I really don't ever plan on rewatching it unless I partake in a marathon. And in that case, I did redeem the digital copy the Blu Ray came with, so I can just watch it that way. The last Terminator film we got as of this video was Dark Fate, and like the previous 4 films, it once again failed to spark new life in this franchise. While I enjoyed it more than Genisys, I still haven't felt the need to go back and re-watch this, despite buying this 4K steelbook from Best Buy upon its release. The Rev 9 is front and center, and while it was slightly different from the T1000, it still just feels more of the same. I saw this in theaters and was pretty gutted when they kill off John Connor at the beginning. The movie never really recovered for me after that. I liked seeing Linda Hamilton come back, and Arnold has his moments, even though his character arc kinda goes against the lore that was set up in the first movie.
It doesn't feel pity or remorse.
I began to understand what I'd taken from you.
Wait, you grew a conscience?
The equivalent to one, yes.
Mackenzie Davis was the real standout and was easily the best part of the movie. She's completely believable as this enhanced human and has an awesome fight scene with the Rev 9. Where this movie completely falls flat is with the Danny character, who is the new messiah now that John is dead. She's so overshadowed by everyone in the movie that I was never invested in her, and I know this was supposed to be the first movie in a planned trilogy, so maybe she would have gotten more time to really showcase that she is this future leader of the Resistance, but for this movie, I was far more interested in the other characters. With a returning Arnold and Linda Hamilton, plus you have Mackenzie Davis being a badass in all these action sequences, she becomes a bit of an afterthought, which is something you don't want when introducing the new lead of this franchise. But this movie bombed, so I don't expect future filmmakers to pick up where this movie leaves off. Lastly, I wanted to show the TV series, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I'm yet to watch the show, but I've heard good things about it. Someday I'll make time and watch it and probably get pretty bummed that it only lasted 2 seasons. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what your thoughts are on this franchise below, especially when it comes to the sequels. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a movie time.